Anthony, Rod of East Coast Lumberjack, and in this video we're going to talk about why your snowblower won't move, won't go ahead, won't go back. And I'm doing this because I searched a lot of YouTube videos and I could not find the answer. So I have it here for you. Okay, so this is my snowblower. Okay, and like a lot of things I do, I don't just mess around. Okay, it's a 36-inch Pro, so Ariens. It's the top of the line. It's the best that they make. It's about 15 years old, and the other day it stopped moving ahead and back, and right out of the blue, it worked great. I put it away in the garage here, and then all of a sudden I fired it up yesterday to move some snow. Wouldn't move. Okay, so over the last little bit, there have been occasions where it hasn't moved, okay? And then I jiggle with it a little bit, and away it goes. So, typically, I want to go over the items that are an issue, okay? Typically can be an issue. So if we look here in our underneath, so there's all the other videos talk about this. There's 6 screws. There's 2 screws here at the back and the top. There's 2 on each side to take this bottom plate off your Ariens. Once that's off, you're going to look in here and see this. Now, these are the things they typically tell you about, okay? The first thing is this here, okay? Now this is a big pulley, and it's basically a plate that spins around, okay? And there's a pulley on it, and this spins around, and then this here, this is your rubber wheel, okay? And the first pulley up here, so we've got a pulley and a wheel, okay? The rubber wheel. On the left-hand side of my snowblower, there's a lever that pulls down, okay? It's attached to a cable. It goes in there, and it flops your pulley in and out, okay? So it flops it out towards your rubber wheel, okay? And when it flops it out, your rubber wheel engages it. It's spinning one way, it catches the rubber wheel, and it's what causes your whole transmission here to work at the back. So it's easy to check. You just depress this and take a peek underneath there and make sure that is flopping back and forth and touching your rubber wheel. Number 2 is the rubber wheel. Okay, that's the second thing people talk about, and that wears out over time and needs to be replaced. And there's lots of good videos on YouTube about it, but that wasn't it, okay? Even though mine's worn a little bit, again, it's 15 years old, that was not it. So, let's keep going down the chain here. So, the rubber wheel turns around right here. This turns around. And of course you can see there's a shaft up there that it turns. And on the end of the shaft, over here, up top here, is a small sprocket. And it turns this bigger sprocket down here. Okay, so as that turns, the rest of it turns. And you can see that all this works on mine. And then on the other side of this sprocket, you'll see there's large teeth right here. Okay, those large teeth. They turn the main sprocket that goes on your wheels. Okay, so and actually it's not a sprocket. Well, it is, but it's called a differential. Okay, and everything was working on my machine. And when I fired it up and I put it in gear, everything was moving around, but my wheel still would not turn. So the big pulley here was turning, but the wheels would not. Okay, so it's easy to get this off. I took the little clips off of both wheels. Here's the wheel right here. Okay, so the clip's on the inside. You just use your fingers to pry that clip off. This is what I want you to see. Okay, so this is your shaft, and it's got splines on it. Okay, and they go in both your wheels. That's one wheel. The other one has a lot longer axle on it. They go into both sides of this differential. Okay, one goes in one side of it, one goes in the other. Okay. The differential is what was busted on my machine. And I'm doing this video so you know to check this as well. Now, I don't know whether all Ariens has that differential or not, but mine does. So now we're going to go in and take a look at the differential. because it's all apart in here on the bench. So you've got that tiny sprocket up top. The chain goes down to a little bit bigger sprocket, and then attached right to that sprocket are those long teeth that go into another sprocket that's on your axle. This is it. And this is what it looks like when it's apart. Now typically when it's together, it's got these two side covers on it. And there's 6 Allen screws, or actually they're Torx screws, that hold it together. So when you look at it, it looks like this. And here's of course those splines that are in the middle of this. That one sprocket goes, or sorry, one axle goes in on one side, one goes in on the other. So these here go inside of this. Okay, this is what was causing my trouble. So if you guys have gone through the videos on the Ariens snowblowers and you can't figure out why your machine won't go ahead or back, if it's not those first 3, which it wasn't on mine, it was the differential. So you got to get down to the differential. Now, when this comes apart, if I take that cover off, inside of this, it's quite an interesting mechanism. You've got this plastic piece. It's got little copper clips the whole way around it. And then between these, right in this hole, go these, okay? They're basically a bearing, okay? They're a long tubular bearing. And they slip down in here in this hole between the two of them. So, if it's your differential, everything else works, but your axle, your wheels don't turn. It's in the differential, and they wear out. So, you can buy them. Call your local Ariens dealer. They set you back $300, just so you know. That's Canadian. So, what I'm doing right now is I'm putting this one back together and seeing if this won't work again. Okay, so I can't see anything here worn, so it won't work. So I can't, now, there's no video online about how to do this. So I'm going to show you, even though I'm not a mechanic. So, we're going to come down here where everybody can see. I know this is a little bit crackly and loud. So what I've done is I've cleaned off all these little pieces. Okay, so here's my little copper piece right here. I've cleaned it off. I'm not sure whether that's what's causing them not to run or not, because there's some dirt on them. But they go in here. Okay, so they fit right on over top like this. Okay, so it sits there like that. And then once you have 2 of them on, side by side, like that. Now between them goes this. Now I'm not a mechanic, but my dad is. And Dad's a diesel mechanic, is not a, we're not snowblower mechanics. When I took this thing apart, there was old dried, it looked like really not heavy grease, but light grease. So we thought it would put this back together with oil and see if that wouldn't work. So that's what I'm going to do. So once I put these 2 little clips on like this, then I'm going to take one of my, they're basically a cylinder, and it's a solid metal cylinder, and I'm going to get some oil. And I'm going to oil this up all around the outside of it. I'm going to slide it back where it goes. So on this one, it slid right in here between these 2. Like that. So all I'm going to do is keep going around this. Okay, I'm going to clean off the next little copper piece. And I'm going to put it on where it goes here. On the next post. And it looks like it's a plastic or ceramic post. And once that's on there, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the next cylinder. I'm going to get a little oil on it and put it in. And I'm going to keep doing that, going the whole way around this. Okay, so there's the next one. And it's in. And all these little copper pieces have holes in them, and they need to line up with these holes underneath, because those are the 6 holes that your torque screws go in to hold the whole thing together. So, a little more oil for the next cylinder. I'm going to slide that in on the next one. I'm going to put this next little copper piece in. Then this one here in. And remember, these have to line up with the holes on the top. So I have to do a little bit of frigging here to make sure that they're exactly where they're supposed to be, so my screws from the outside will go in. And I may go through all this and this thing won't work. It maybe is too worn out. But I thought, what the heck? The new part's coming. I've got nothing to lose, so I might as well try it. Now there's a few little, on some of these, there's a little bit of rust buildup. So I'm just going to use a little bit of sandpaper. I'm just going to rub each end, because I'm not sure exactly how this works. I'm just going to sand it a little bit to take some of that rust off. I'm going to put some more oil on it. So again, just keep doing this here and going around it. Oil it up. Put my next little clip on. They don't stay in there very well. There. And then I'll put this next one in. There, it's in. Put my last clip on. Clean this one up just a bit. Maybe I can pick this down a little bit so we can see. Okay. So that's 5 of them in. One more. There. So, they're all in now. All 6 are back in. And I'm just checking all my holes. The holes are all lined up in that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this outside piece now, because all those holes there line up with these, and then the screws go in. So again, I'm not sure. There seems to be some grease on the inside of this, so I'm going to put some oil on it, some light oil. It's just 30 oil. So hopefully okay, so it's all greased up. Now I'm going to line those up, those holes, with these ones right there, and then these little screws all go in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and I'm going to take my Torx. It's a T15 is what it takes. I'm just going to tighten each of these up. So I know that if you're anything like me, you're not going to watch it all. You're going to watch till you see what you need to do. And then if you have to find out more, you'll come back. So I'm just going to keep on putting this together. And then if we run into another problem, you need a little bit more information, and you can come back and start the video up again and see where we're at. And take the next piece of information that you need. So those are all snugged up. So that's half of it together there right now. It looks like they are going to slide in here, so they're sliding back and forth. So that's half of it. Now, I have no idea. I did put a little bit of light oil around the inside of this because now this here goes on the inside, and that it's projection. There's a little bit of a piece here that protrudes on the other side. That slides in. There. So it goes in like this, and it sits flush right here. Okay, so that's how that goes in there. And that turns. So I'm just going to put a little bit of oil around the outside of that as well, just in case it's supposed to be lubricated. I might just put a couple drops in there, because I want to make sure that if it is supposed to be lubricated, there is some in there. Okay. So now that's lubricated. And it's sliding, it's rotating in there very smoothly. So now we're together that far. I'm going to do the same thing around here. Put this in through here, where it belongs. Okay, so I see now. Now, the next thing, if you look at this, it's not a circle. You can see there's 6 places that are pushed out a little bit. Those need to line up with your cylinders, those little cylinders. So when I line those up like that, that should go back together. Almost there. There. So now it's in there. So this is what it looks like now. So all I have to do is put the other ones in, the other 6 in here, and then line up my clips, make sure the holes are open, and then put the other side together, and I'm going to try it in my blower. So remember, this piece here has to go in the middle of it. I'll probably put that in first. I think I'll oil it, lube it up as well. So I'm just lubing out the outside of that. And then it's going to go in. Actually, there's 2 little, yes, good thing I remember these. There's 2 little plastic dividers. I'm just going to go around them and clean off the dirt, and a little bit of oil from my fingers will go back on them. Now that might be a problem there. There's a little piece of dirt on that one. It's gone now. So they go in the middle. They go between these two pieces. Okay, so now all I have to do is put my last cylinders and clips in. Okay, the clips, same ones we showed you before. I'm going to put those in and then put my cylinders in, screw it back together, and then put it back in my machine and see if it'll work. But the biggest thing I wanted to show you is that this extra part, so this is the differential in the rear end of your Ariens snowblower. If it's not your belt that's broken to turn your first pulley, and the pulley's coming out and meeting your rubber wheel like it's supposed to, the rubber wheel's turning and all your gears are turning. If your wheel still won't turn, it's this, the differential. You can buy a new one, and I will tell you, I'll have another post here to see whether this thing actually works or not. Okay, so I'm going to keep on putting this together, and then I'll reinstall it in my blower and see if that won't get it going back and forth again. So, on snowblower repairs from the East Coast Lumberjack, I'm an axe handle guy, but today we're repairing a snowblower. Hey gang, Rod here at East Coast Lumberjack. This is part 2 of the Ariens snowblower saga. Why your snowblower won't go forward or reverse. In the first section I talked about the different things that you could look at, whether it was the large disc, the pulley, and sometimes that belt breaks, so check the belt first. If that's not broken, check that when you pull your handle down, your left side handle, that pulley moves back and engages your rubber wheel. Okay, so that's number 2, the friction wheel. Make sure the friction wheel still has rubber on it and will turn around on that pulley that's actually spinning around. If that doesn't work, number 3, there could be a chain or a sprocket that's broken in there down to where your axle is on your main wheels. Now, the 4th thing that I told you about was the differential. And I took it apart and I showed you here. It's kind of painful to watch, but I showed you what I did to clean it up and put it back together, and I used light duty oil. And you can hear that rumbling out here. I got some good news. No such trucks, you can watch it. I just put it all back together. Like a dream. So the East Coast Lumberjack is typically into axe handles. I do have mechanics in my blood, but it kind of skipped my generation because my brother's a mechanic and my dad's a mechanic, but I'm not much of a mechanic, in all honesty. However, if a guy like me can take this apart and make it work, anybody on the planet can do it because I'm not much of a mechanic. Now, the only thing I will say when I put this back together, there's 2 washers under there, and I couldn't figure out where they went. But once I looked around and saw where that sprocket should be, the big one, the differential, there had to be 2 washers between the differential and that right hand drive wheel, okay, to give it the spacing it needs to ride in the cogs of the other pulley, of the other gear. So that's all I did. I took it apart, I cleaned off those little cylinders, those little metal cylinders, and I cleaned off the little copper pieces that slid down on each side. They give a little bit of friction there. So I cleaned all those off. There seemed to be like a heavy grease on them, or at least a mid-grade grease on them. I cleaned that all off, smoothed up the little cylinders again, and I just put it all back together using a light grade oil, okay? And it was just SAE 30 oil. And when I put it all back together and put it back on the blower, miraculously, So I do believe in miracles, of course. It worked. So again, if a dummy like me can do it, anybody can do it. So those are the things that keep your snowblower, Ariens snowblower, from going forward and reverse. And that's the last one that is not on YouTube. But I showed you how to, you know how to take it out, take it apart, clean it all, and put it back together, and you'll save yourself $300. I don't know what I'm going to do now because my new part is still on its way. Anyhow, that's it for this segment.